Hello, welcome back. You're about to finish up our 8-week fat loss program, and I'm going to tell you, you probably haven't made it all the way to your goals. If you've been doing the things that we've been talking about and prescribing and starting to build some consistency with them, even if you're just now starting to do that, I guarantee progress is on the horizon for you. And like we talked about last week, the things you need to do are not going to change. So if they're hard, let them be hard. Keep working on them, and maybe you need to ask some questions, book a consultation, whatever. That is what we are here for. But today, as I promised you, we talked last week about the only two things that can happen to your physique. You can have changes to your body fat. You can have changes to your muscle. Not all the other things people promise and say that can happen, and bulk and shred and cut and build and all this. It's muscle gain, hypertrophy, or you're liberating lipid from your fat cells. That is it. That's the only thing that can occur. So I'm going to tell you how to maximize both of those two things. So what I think I've alluded to this several weeks ago, but you can lose a lot of muscle really quickly. That is possible. And it's a terrible thing for somebody to have happen. And it's something we don't pay enough attention to when we're trying to lose body fat. We just want to see the scale move, right? That's why we need to do fat calipers, we need to do progress pictures, we need to do measurements, we need to do the scale all in concert together so we have a more complete story. Because if you lose muscle and you lose 5 pounds of muscle and you go down 5 pounds, you actually increased your body fat percentage as a whole. So that's not good. But you can lose a lot of muscle really quickly. Your body will sacrifice muscle pretty quick. It takes a longer time for it to go in and get fat and metabolize that and make all that processes happen. So when you see people that have extreme weight loss, most of it's probably going to be muscle, and that's not good. Okay, that's a very, very, very unhealthy and bad place to be. So you can lose muscle fast. You can lose bone as well. That doesn't happen very fast, but you can lose muscle fast. You can gain muscle, not at the rate that you can lose it, but you can gain muscle very fast. It is a very specific protocol that's really hard to achieve. We don't necessarily teach that protocol because it's unattainable for 95% of people, but you can gain a lot more muscle than people think at a lot faster rate. However, we're going to teach in a second about how the normal way to gain and build muscle. You can gain a lot of body fat very quickly. So we can lose muscle fast, we can gain muscle fast, we can gain body fat fast. That's very clear and easy to most people how that occurs. But what we cannot do is lose body fat fast. That is something that is just physiologically hard to make happen. However, because people don't understand how this works, people on the internet will promise you that you can lose 30 pounds in 30 days. Listen, if you give you a laxative, a fat loss tea, it's not a fat loss tea, right? Or weight loss tea. I bet you do lose weight because you're in the bathroom every 4 hours, emptying everything in your body. The stuff about toxic sludge in your stomach not moving. Oh, they cherry pick research and blow that out of proportion. You can make the scale go down very rapidly. You cannot, however, lose body fat. And how depressing is it when you see the scale go down and it comes right back up because you ate food and your stomach content fills back up? Like that's really hard for people who already are struggling with their weight and probably their self-confidence and a lot of those other things. So what I want to clear the air on is that losing body fat takes a pretty good amount of time, but you can lose muscle pretty quickly. So the worst possible thing that can happen, I think you've realized by now how I feel about that, is that you lose muscle while you lose body fat. So the whole game with fat loss is to put yourself in a calorie deficit, which is a catabolic state, meaning a state in which your body's breaking down tissue, and somehow convince your body to keep the expensive, hard to upkeep tissue, which is your muscle, and sacrifice its energy reserves, which it thinks that it needs for survival. How do you make that happen? Because it's kind of opposite of our physiology, almost, the way that our DNA is programmed. So how do we make that happen? Because what's going to happen for most people is the negative consequences we just talked about at length. So the whole fat loss game, here's what it is. The whole fat loss game is put yourself in a catabolic state and a calorie deficit for a consistent enough amount of time that your body starts to lean on its body fat reserves and not sacrifice muscle tissue. So this game now becomes not how much weight can I lose, not how much can the scale go down, not how much body fat can I strip off, but how much muscle can I preserve while I do it. That is now a very different diet, exercise regimen, lifestyle and probably methods than somebody who says, how can I maximize fat loss? If you maximize fat loss and you also maximize muscle loss, you have lost. Didn't mean to make that a pun. You completely lose the game. Will you lose some muscle when you are losing body fat? Yeah, you will. But how little can we use? Here's what we're going to do. We are going to resistance train generally twice a week at the appropriate intensity. So 7 sets per muscle group per week, which basically looks like if you're thinking like, man, I got to do 3 sets for quads, 3 sets for hamstrings, 3 sets for core, 3 sets for my lats, 3 sets for my shoulders. No. If you do a barbell row really, really hard enough, it's going to work your back, your rear delts, your biceps. When you do a bench press or an overhead press, it's going to work your shoulders, your chest, your triceps. When you do a squat, it's going to work everything in your legs. It's going to work your core. So if you do compound movements, you can combine all this, right? So 7 sets of appropriate intensity exercise per week is what is required to maintain muscle. Growing muscle, different story, we'll get to that. But in order to maintain muscle while you're trying to lose body fat, that is the minimum requirement. Now we want to go a little above, right? Just for insurance purposes, just for sake of, peace of mind, and you're going to burn some extra calories, although we know exercise isn't just for that, or if anything, it's not even the biggest benefit. A lot of great things are going to happen with resistance training. I think we've covered that pretty in depth, and you guys know I'd love to talk about it for a half hour, but I'm not going to. So 2 full body workouts a week of resistance training at the right intensity will take care of the stimulus to keep the muscle. So you'll convince your body, hey, this would be a good idea if you have the building blocks, if you have the nutrition, if you have the right amount of protein. If you can, because I'm doing this amount of exercise at this intensity, you should keep this muscle. Although you don't have a lot of calories around, I know calories are scarce right now. Listen, pull from body fat because we need to keep this muscle, because we're doing this exercise that is really important. We're doing this twice a week. We're doing this very consistently. We need to keep this muscle. That's what happens inside your body. Now, here's the asterisk on that, okay? Here's the part that everybody messes up. It's not just go through the motions, it's the appropriate intensity. Now, some people hear that and they actually go the wrong other direction, and they say, well, it's as much intensity as possible. No, keep in mind, more intensity, if you have the right mindset and you're okay with it, is not always a bad thing. However, you don't want to put yourself in a state where you're not recovering from your exercise. You don't want to just go over the top for the sake of going over the top. It should feel like a struggle to complete the last rep of pretty much every set that you do of those 7 sets per body part per week, right? So there's a reason now, when you look at your workout plan that we built for you, there's a reason why the volume is at the volume that it's at. There's a reason why we're making the changes that we're making. The variable that you must control is I'm going to do 8 reps of this overhead barbell press or this leg press or whatever it is that you're doing. Hopefully mostly compound movements. The variable is like, okay, if I'm doing 8 reps and I just grab the barbell and I do 8 reps of the barbell, well, that's easy. I probably could have done 30. But Chase said it's only 7 sets per week. No. Of the appropriate intensity. You have to add the correct amount of weight in order to attain this kind of checkbox to save your muscle. Because remember, if we lose this muscle, we are losing this game altogether, right? Scale's going down, that's great, but you're actually getting fatter in terms of body fat percentage. I hope that word doesn't trigger anybody, but the truth is you're getting in a state where you have more body fat than lean mass. The ratio is going up if we're losing muscle, so we cannot lose muscle. Okay, so that's the stimulus. The other part is how much protein do you get? Do you get enough protein? It's 0.7 grams of protein per pound of lean body mass. Again, gram per centimeter is probably going to be the mark for you. It's probably going to be the best mark for you to shoot for. If you're doing that or close to that consistently, you have the amino acids available to sustain that muscle, no problem, even though all the calories aren't there. And here's the cool thing about why I don't love a keto diet. This is also true, but here's the cool thing about eating a balanced diet where you're eating carbohydrate is what's called protein sparing, which means that when you have carbohydrate in your diet, you're actually not going to lose as much muscle as if you ate the same protein and the same amount of calories, but the rest of the calories not from protein were from fats instead of carbs, aka keto. Keto is cool. It's great. There's a lot of great benefits. This is not the time for you to be doing it though when you're trying to lose body fat. Initially, for 6 to 8 weeks, there's an incredible, insane amount of benefit. Needs to be supported and done the right way. If you have questions on those, please ask us. However, the thing with ketogenic diet is because it doesn't have any protein sparing nutrient other than the protein that you hopefully consume, it's easier to lose muscle, right? And that's, again, big loss. So that's pretty much it, is do that type of exercise, eat enough protein. You will preserve a lot more muscle than you would if you don't do those things. If you just were a cardio bunny and you did nothing but cardio, and you ate just, skip breakfast and you fasted and you didn't eat, and you're stressed out and you're using stimulants, man, you're just gonna peel muscle right off your body if you do that. But that's the fat loss prescription that everybody gives. And quite frankly, it's wrong. It's incorrect. It's not wrong morally. It's just simply black and white, incorrect and wrong. So how do you do the other thing? I know you're not quite as interested in that, but how do you build as much muscle as possible? We'll just think the opposite. What's the general prescription for people who are bulking, right? What do you think of probably when you think of bulking? What do you think of? You think of getting fat, right? Let's call it what it is. That's what you think of. And that's because a lot of people, when they bulk, they gain a lot of body fat because they are eating too many calories. There's a calculation that is done with in concert with your age, your body weight, your movement level, your BMR. It spits out the right amount of calories. You add 1,500, divide that by 7. That's your daily amount of calories that you need, and then you subtract the protein calories from that and get the right amount of protein. You're done. That's your diet. That's it. It's very simple math. Most people just aren't aware that it exists. But the problem is they go way over on the calories, eat too many calories, just like people can eat too few calories, and they start storing body fat while they're building muscle. Now, same thing here, same equation. Now, are you going to do a bunch of cardio while you're trying to build muscle? You're going to do a little, because pushing oxygen to your muscle during exercise allows you to carry more weight on the bar, which allows you to have higher intensity and faster strength gains and larger tensile force on the muscle, which adds more growth. So cardio is important, but you're not going to try and burn as many calories as possible. You're trying to get your intensity up, allow a strong signal to build muscle, get out of the gym, rest, sleep, recover, because that is when you're going to grow. So, and if you want to know, in order to lose body fat, you're going to take your maintenance calories and you're going to go down by 300 to 500 calories per day. And over the course of a week, you should lose between 1/2 to 1 pound on average, averaged out, zooming out over the course of 12 to 16 weeks. You can observe that trend. You cannot observe it week to week. You will fail, get discouraged, and quit. So don't try to do that. So, if you feel like you're not in a calorie deficit, if you got an eating guide from us at any point, it has the right amount of calories on there for you for the time frame, for the certain amount of weight loss. That's calculated by finding your maintenance and going down, and kind of doing the math on that. It's like, hey, I want to do this by March 7th. Here's how much time that is, how many calories will be required to be in a deficit by, so you need to eat this much. Long story short, if you don't know what your maintenance is, here's what it is. Here's the dirty, simple way to do it. There's calculators out there. We can help do it for you. But the simple way is, if I eat this exact amount of calories, so let's say 1,800 calories a day, 7 days in a row, and I see no change on the scale, or it just goes up and down a pound or so with water, and nothing really changes, then that's your maintenance, and you just drop below that. We got to caution you though about going too low on your calories. Go super, super low for a long period of time. Some stuff can happen that takes a little bit while to reverse. It's not irreversible damage. You're not going to destroy your metabolism or give yourself a thyroid condition. I've seen that happen in extreme cases, but you're probably not going to do that. So there you go. There is how to make those two things, the only two things that can happen. And there's a very objective way of looking at making those things happen. So you're either trying to lose as much body fat as possible while losing as little muscle as possible. That's the same thing. That's fat loss. Or you're trying to build as much muscle as possible while not gaining gaining as little body fat as you can during that process. Here's the thing. You will gain a little bit of body fat as you try to build a lot of muscle. Unless you're a newbie and you're brand new to this, some crazy things can happen, really cool adaptations. Or you're going to try and lose body fat. You will lose a little muscle, but it's how little can we lose. Here's the problem is people always land in between and they try to do both. And when you do both, you do neither, right? If you're not optimizing for one or the other, you will fail and make no progress. And that's where most people live, is right in the middle, because you're always hearing about building muscle and how to build muscle, and you know it's important to keep muscle. So you do those things in your workouts and your nutrition, but then you're trying to actually lose body fat, so you do these things. So you end up blending the two and all this advice that you get, and you do both. So that's why we've designed your program the way that we've designed it. And if in the future you go to the muscle building program, the hypertrophy program, or the fitness program, which optimizes for mobility and cardiovascular health and strength, right? Maybe you build muscle, maybe you lose body fat, maybe you do, maybe you don't. But what we know is we're optimizing for those things in performance. Okay, that's a different conversation I'm not going to hit you with right now. So make sure you're somewhere, you know where you're at on that spectrum. That way you know what you're doing. So I hope that was incredibly helpful to you. I'm sure you have some questions, probably about keto. Ask them. Listen, we love answering your questions. Please get a hold of us, and hopefully that creates some clarity for you. And hope you're doing really well. We got one more week left, and I will see you here in about 7 days.